Al, it is time for our annual check-in
Hmm.
with a good live-action drama.
Yes. Very good.
Very good, for sure. Hello, welcome to this week's episode of Seasonal Anime Checkup OVA. It's a podcast where we have conversations about video games, anime, and manga. Hello, I'm Jared, joined as always by Doc, Al, and Lady
Hello.
This is episode 387, and we are going to talk about the latest episode in the Spokeshibe Rohan live-action drama.
My God, we love this.
It's very good.
So good.
This
I
is
hope they never stop making these
I
episodes.
really hope not. This is the only episode of season 4 that they are making, but it's a good one.
It's a good one.
It combines one of our favorite episodes from Diamond is Unbreakable, along with one of the stories from the manga itself. So it's full of goodness here for us. We're feasting over
very
here.
good. Yes, we are.
For sure. We've talked about all the other episodes and the movie that came out last year. Those are all scattered throughout the backlog of our episodes. So if you ever watch these episodes and want to hear our thoughts about them, you can go find all those. They're somewhere. They're there. They exist.
Somewhere. They exist.
But yeah. Like I said, this is the only episode of Season 4. It came out on May the 5th, 2024. That was its initial release date in Japan. And then on May 18th, it came out on Prime Video, where you can watch it globally and all that stuff, which is neat.
Yes.
I believe the 18th as well was the when that the secondary episode also went up. So that's why that all went up on Prime that day.
Oh, okay.
The more you know. But yes, Rohan's back, Kyoka's back. They're out. They got some shenanigans to get up to, and this time it is shenanigans involving a certain Italian restaurant.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, like I said, this basically part of it is readapting the Let's Go Eat Some Italian Food episode from Diamond is Unbreakable. And then the second half of it is adapting the Poaching Seashore one-shot from the Rohan series, which is basically kind of a continuation because it also involves Chef Tonio. So that's why we are combining both of these together into one singular episode. And it all works out pretty well. Like, it makes sense that you can put these two together and nothing feels off or anything. It doesn't feel disjointed or anything. It's just like, oh yeah, this flows really well. Like, it all makes sense and everything. So it's all gravy. It's all gravy. But yeah, let's talk about this here episode. It was a fun one.
Mm-hmm.
It was definitely going to be something where we were like thinking like, because we are big fans of the Italian food episode of Diamond is Unbreakable. So, and there's some very excessive and extreme moments in that episode.
Uh-huh.
So it was going to be very curious to see how this does that in particular, because you don't necessarily expect the live action or like a live action adaptation in general to go that extreme, and especially because this really hasn't in most of the other episodes. So
Right.
that was the one thing I was like super curious about going into this, and
But then we saw the warning that it was only smoking.
which really wasn't true.
No, it wasn't.
That dude was not smoking. He just had it in his mouth.
He just had it in his mouth and his hair.
Mm-hmm.
Or his hairband, I guess.
Yeah, it was weird. Anyways, we'll get into some of that later on. But yeah, we kicked this episode off, and we got some dudes hanging out by some rocks by the sea. They are trying to poach some abalone.
I think it's abalone.
Abalone.
I don't know. How do you say it? We should have looked this up before we started.
I mean, I could do that right now. But yeah, they're trying to do some poaching, and not really super successful. I always thought when I was looking at this episode, first off, I thought this was going to be like a big fish, but no,
Right.
these are just like shelled fish,
Yes, they're small little guys.
small little dudes. Well, in
Oh.
this episode, they are kind of big little dudes.
Abalone.
Abalone.
Abalone, interesting.
See,
Abalone.
Abalone.
Uh,
There you go.
I don't know if you could hear her or not,
Oh
but
yeah. That definitely picked up.
oh, cool. All right, abalone. Now we know.
But yeah,
Abalone. It's a baloney.
abalone.
Abalone. Yeah, those little guys, the little seafood
Yeah.
critters.
The,
Wait, I guess I should say sea critters, not seafood, but you can eat them.
so yeah, these dudes are trying to get them, but they were unable to get to where they are because there's some cameras around, and they didn't want to get caught because they were doing illegal activity. They also talk about how there was a foreigner they found who was trying to get information about the abalone and like see if they could like help him out and everything. They're like, we're gonna scam this man. They're also like, well, you just buy one from like a fishing port or something, just sell it to him for $1 million yen. That would make a lot of sense. Ha 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 ha. We're so good. And then
We're so smart.
they're laughing and having a good time, and then you just hear, "Shut up!" And here's the good old Rohan in like
Half naked.
he's got a wetsuit on, but he's only like halfway up, and then he's in a shirt unbuttoned, and he's just like sitting there, and he's just very angry because he had been sitting out all night waiting to do some sketches for this rare species of Japanese mitten crabs, and they only come out at the very specific point in the morning, but they're very nervous and everything. So if
Same.
like they hear noises or anything, they'll get spooked off and get scared away, and they'll be hidden again. And that's exactly what happened. And Rohan's just like, this happened because you guys wouldn't shut up, and I'm very angry. And then one of the
I
guys
was like, why don't you just Google it?
yeah, just Google it. What are you gonna draw here? And Ron's like, because I deal with reality, and that's what my manga deals with. And if I didn't do that, I'd be lying to my readers. And I need all the senses of an area. Scent, seeing, hearing, touch, taste, and then he just eats a worm. Like, bleh.
Yep. Bleh.
Does that, and then they're about to leave, and then he uses Heaven's Door on them as well, to just look in to see what they were like. They're all about and everything. Learns about like them being poachers and everything and all that sort of stuff, and then he writes in one of them to surveil the sea for Rohan. That way,
He also sees it like they were missing people.
yeah,
They're missing what's the word I'm looking
sailors,
for? Sailors, fishermen,
Fishermen.
fellers, missing fellers.
one or the other.
Yeah, something like that. They're just like missing. Huh. Okay. I'm reading your book.
And then we get a scene where we see a chef making some lamb chops and feeding it to a dog, and the dog makes some funky noises.
Mm-hmm.
After that, we go to a cafe. Rohan's just sitting there reading a book about the abalones, swimming, doing their thing. And then, like you said, he has this little book of like cutouts from newspaper articles about people going missing. And they go from like 2022 all the way back to like 1954. Of just like, here's people going into the sea and then never showing up again. And this is when Kyoka shows up. She's got a thing around her face, like a big wrap around her face, because she's got a cavity and she's in pain.
It's like the stereotypical like I have a toothache head wrap thing that
Yeah.
people do in media. She got that going on.
Yeah, she talks about being late because like there's a whole bunch of festivities happening for the Bond Festival, and then she hasn't been eating well and sleeping well. She don't have time to go to the dentist because of her job and everything. And Rohan's is like, if you had a better diet, you wouldn't be dealing with this. Food is medicine after all. And Kyoko's like, I don't have time to cook when I get home. I'm tired. What do you mean? And then their whole meeting is basically supposed to be about a one-shot that Rohan's doing about a horror-themed manga that revolves around food. And he's like, well, I don't know if you should be editing this given the way you eat and everything. And she's basically like, oh, by the way, I was walking because I went to your house first accidentally, blah, blah, blah. I saw the sign for this new Italian restaurant. We should go there. I have some nice fancy food and everything. That's where we'll have our meeting about this one shot and everything." And like Rohan's like, what? What do you mean? There's a Italian restaurant near my house? I don't know about this.
Weird.
So they head that way, and then they see a sign for it, and Rohan's like, "Oh, I guess that's not. Huh, all right." They go to this Italian restaurant, and it's in a big house essentially.
House.
There's
With one table.
one table, and that's it. They sit down, and here comes Chef Tonio out to greet them, give them some water. And he's like, "This is my restaurant. And everything. We don't have a menu. I just I make things, and that's that." And he reads Kyoka's
Read your hand.
and he's like, "Oh, you got a cavity. You haven't been sleeping well and everything." It's like, okay. And then he reads Rohan's palms, and he's like, "You got something wrong with your shoulder? You got some intestinal flare up,
Inflammation.
Yes, thank you." It's like, "All right, I got you guys. I'll make some dishes to help alleviate you and everything." So of course, if you've seen the Diamond Unbreakable episode, Rohan is taking the place of Josuke. Kyoka is taking the place of Okuyasu, and basically things
This is
are
really good.
going to play out similarly than how they did there. Rohan also remembers that when he was looking through the dudes at the beach earlier, they had a piece in there about some strange Italian man who wanted the abalone. And then they also thought he was doing weird experiments on food and a dog.
Mm-hmm.
So there's that. So they drink the water, of course, just having a nice drink of water before you get into your food and everything. And Kyoka takes a sip, and she's like, "Holy crap, this water is amazing. This is the best water
best
ever.
water I've ever had."
Rohan takes a sip, and he's like, "Oh, this is not wrong. This is pretty good." And then Kyoka just starts seeing like drips of water fall out, and then just spewing water everywhere.
He brings in a bowl. It's like,
Yeah.
there you go.
It's like, "Oh, here you go. This will be fine. Don't worry. This is just a side effect of this fancy water from the melted snow of Mount Kilimanjaro, from this 50,000-year-old melted snow. This will be over very quickly." And then once the bowl is full of water, she wipes her hands away. He's like, "Oh my God, I feel amazing."
I feel so good. So well rested.
Oh, this is great.
I want to feel well rested.
Yeah, don't we all?
I would drink some Kilimanjaro water for that.
True. Kyoka also asks Rohan about why his shoulder's acting up, and he's like, maybe it's because I've been throwing that frisbee around that you got and you didn't tell me for Bakin. Just been throwing that around with the dog. And then also his stomach's upset because he had some Chinese food with some of Kyoka's bosses at the workplace, the night before, and the oil was bad.
Mm-hmm.
So we get our first appetizer. We get a caprese salad, cheese and tomatoes. We learn, of course, the Italian caprese. Excuse me. We learned some Italian propaganda about tomatoes, and you were like, "I don't think that's right."
It wasn't right. It's not right. Italians are not the first ones that use tomatoes in cuisine, because tomatoes are from the Americas.
But don't let them tell you that.
No, I mean, I understand that that's an Italian thing, that they are like, tomatoes are our thing. Sure, fine. But they're still not, you're not the first. Do not erase the South Americans and the Mexicans.
True. So he brings it out and everything, and Rohan's like, "Hey, would you mind tasting this first before we dig in?" And
Certainly.
Tony's like, "Hey, look, it's great and everything. All right, have fun." So they both dive in and start eating it, and they're like, "Wow, this is really good and everything." And then Rohan's just like, "Shoulder's feeling really funky. Gonna scratch at it. And, oh God, why am I pulling out just layers of skin? What is happening? Oh God!"
He just throwing himself around the room, pulling skin off.
And Chef Tonio's just got a platter, and just running around with him. He's like, "I'll catch it. I got it for you."
Collecting it.
Yeah. He's like, "Oh, your metabolism's working better because of this dish and everything. So that's why the blood circulation is flowing in, and it's improving your stuff." And then once all that's done, and he's he's fine and everything, and Rohan's just moving the shoulder around, doing some stretches and everything. He's like, holy crap, my shoulder feels great. It's like it's a
Feels
balloon
amazing.
lifting it up. It's amazing. This rules. So we get that. The first course is spaghetti.
Spaghetti.
Spaghetti. But but Kyoka and Rohan are kind of like a little tepid to eat it, and Kyoka's like, I don't know, I think I'm good. I'm not really good with peppers. I think I might be done. And Tonio's like, oh no, it's fine. This is good. Even people who can't handle spice, they will eat it completely. But he's also like, hey, if you don't like it, it's fine. I apologize. You didn't like the meals. You don't have to pay or anything. It's totally cool. And then he goes to leave, and then immediately afterwards, like, Rohan's just sitting there, and Kyoka just starts nom, 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 nom. She's like, I can't stop eating it. It's so good.
It's just inhaling
Oh,
it.
like the spice doesn't even exist. It's so good. And then all of a sudden, she's just like, oh, my mouth, my jaw. Oh no. And then a tooth just flings out of her mouth, just shoots out, and Rohan's is like, is this your cavity? And she's like, oh, my jaw, oh no. And then we get a nice close-up into her mouth where we see a tooth growing immediately.
Yep.
It's just
Immediately.
a real wild camera shot.
It was really. I wonder how they made that happen. I mean, it had to have been some kind of like model or something
Yeah.
with CG.
It was a good effect.
It was a really good effect.
But yeah,
Looked as realistic as it can with a tooth growing in like
Yep.
10 seconds.
and she's just like, oh, and then the tooth grows back. She's like, I think I just grew a new tooth.
No cavity.
The cavity's gone and it feels great, but also like, why did it just happen?
This is unusual.
Rohan goes to like his plate and realizes like there's a little snail or a whelk. I think that's what they're calling it. He's
Whelk.
like, this is from the Sea of Okhotsk from the Kamchatka Peninsula. It's poison essentially.
Mhm.
It is like people aren't supposed to eat it. You're not even supposed to like look at or like mix anything with the shell because it's so dangerous. And he's like, that's definitely poison. That's I don't know about that. And Tonio comes back and he's like, oh, you ate it, great. Is your tooth better? That's amazing. All right, we're gonna get to the main
Here's
course.
the next thing.
And Kyoka-
Mushrooms.
And then they just, like before they get to the next thing, they're just like talking like, is he gonna kill us? Is he doing some weird
Like-
experimentation to going to murder us?
He's very clearly helping you feel better.
Yeah.
And you're like, is he murdering us?
But yes, we get to our main course. It is some lamb and a mushroom stew. The mushroom is, of course, the devil porcini from the border of Poland and the Czech Republic. It is poisonous, of course.
Mm-hmm.
Rohan's immediately like, so yeah, I know about this. It can, cause some stomach pain, some cramps, make you puke, and also it could kill you. The whole time Chef Tony is just sitting there like, yes, that's true.
Yes, that's exactly it. Yeah, huh?
And then Kyoka's just like, yo, you shouldn't eat that. And then Rohan's like, I'm gonna eat it.
Gonna eat it.
I'm gonna eat it. He eats a little bit and then immediately starts just like collapses and convulses, and Kyoka's like, ah.
He just goes still for a minute.
Yeah, and then he immediately like jolts back up and is just like, wow, I feel great. Man, I feel amazing.
We were joking that he farted.
Yeah. He goes on this tangent of being like, sometimes like you can use poison as a life-saving medicine. Sometimes they use nitroglycerin to treat this one thing. Morphine's used to treat, as an anesthetic and painkiller. And he's like, I bet, you, Chef Tonio, you've trained with, all sorts of different ways to use, animals and plants to get the most out of them in order to combine them with your food and everything. So you can basically kind of heal people in a way. And he's like, yeah, that's how it works.
That's essentially what it is.
Yeah. He's like, all right, so here's, in the Caprese. Is that right?
Caprese.
That the herb was a Sicilian basin. That normally has a strong poison, but then you mix it with the olive oil that I have, and the toxicity's gone, and now that helps you boost your metabolism. The whelk in the spaghetti has tetramine in it, but then when it reacts with the pepper, it has this big antibacterial effect to it, which is great for when you have a cavity per se. And then, when you have these mushrooms in the lamb, specifically from Normandy, and, you get a lot of digestive enzymes and everything. And it basically just breaks down all that bacteria down there, that yucky bacteria. And then he's like, by the way, did your dog have an upset stomach? He's like, how did you know? Why, yes, I was also giving him the same dish to help his tummy out because he ate some bad things. And now he's all better. We got to see the little pupper. He was like,
little pupper. He was so cute.
I
wanted to see more pupper.
Yeah. Kyoka is basically like, how do you know how to do this? This seems real wild. And he's like, one time I was in Mexico 5 years ago and I, may have consumed a lot of scorpion venom. You know how it is. Casually. And then I had a big fever. I passed out. And then a week later, I just woke up and I was fine. And then, after that, I had the ability to read people's hands and palms and knew exactly what was wrong with them in that moment. And then, I used that along with my ability to cook and everything and combine those together basically to find ways to help heal people. Which I think is interesting because this is the first time really in the series that we get the confirmation of someone else having a stand ability.
Mm-hmm.
So that was interesting, especially with how Rohan takes to it and everything, and the ways they are able to describe it in this, because they don't really show stands in the same way that they do in regular JoJo. So
right,
it's interesting how they do that. One of the other things I wanted to talk about in this, especially because we were talking about it when we were watching it, is that the cinematography for this episode is really, really well done, especially during this part in particular, with just the ways that they're able to use weird looking camera angles to convey this sense of uneasiness, forebodingness. They especially do it really well with when Tonio's just standing there, just watching on, and you if you didn't know, you would just think he's just heh 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 heh. But in reality, he's just yeah, they're eating my food. Yeah, they're gonna feel better. Yeah.
He's just so happy, but the smirk. Even the actor did a really, really good job at portraying this, but the smirk that he's got on there, it could be misconstrued as hey, they're falling for it type smirk. 100%. But it's genuinely him being excited because he's able to help them with his food.
Yeah. It was
that's legit what it is.
It was really well done. I thought they did a really great job with this, especially it was
yes,
adapting this part in particular, because we'll get into the next part, which is the other part of the adaptation.
Mm-hmm.
I thought they did a really excellent job of adapting this Diamond is Unbreakable episode here, and switching out the characters and putting Rohan and Kyoka in here, and I think they put them in the right positions, and it fit really well in terms of how their characters would react to this, in similar ways to how Josuke and Okuyasu's characters reacted to it, and nothing really felt out of place. You could definitely see both sets of characters doing the same thing. And it doesn't feel like you really kind of just copy and pasted one over the other. It's just it works really well, I think.
I completely agree.
Yeah, it
was really well done, and my God, the shots were beautiful.
It's really good. So they go to leave because they had their meal and everything. They're like, hey, by the way, Rohan's I don't want to be intruding or anything, but yo, you're a really good cook. Why are you just set up in the middle of a small Japanese town? What are you doing? And then he's just and then he goes and rushes into another room and checks in on someone, and then he brings out his fiance, Hatsune Morishima, who's in a wheelchair and a hat. She's like, hello. And she's like, I'm a pastry chef. And he's like, yeah, this is kind of why I'm here. And she explains that she's got a tumor in her head the size of a grapefruit, and
a grapefruit. Chef
Tonio's basically been trying to find ways to heal her and everything, but can't. And then he heard a rumor in Taiwan about the mysterious Japanese abalone. It can cure any disease. And then he came out here. He went to a fishing village and he learned about the Hyogara abalone, and talked to this old fisherman who basically had this long this legend tale about the thing and all this, and this is the old man who was definitely smoking with his unlit cigarette, just being an old man.
Unlit cigarette that just kept moving around.
So he tells this tale that the old man told him, and then Rohan's like, funny enough, I have this book I found from like an ancient bookstore, and it basically corroborates that old man's story about the abalone and how on the night of the Bond Festival with the full moon they will kind of get drunk, quote unquote, and float into this one specific area, and then there'll just be tons and tons of them there. So like I think we're kind of got a thing here. And then he's also like, by the way, though, we can't really do that because poaching abalone is illegal here. And Tony was like, oh, but I wanted to break the law.
No, let me break the law.
Hatsune's just like, I don't want you to do this. And then she passes out. And then they're like, let's go break the law.
Let's do it.
So yeah, they go out on the night.
Like, you know what? I was hoping you were that kind of guy.
Yeah, they go out on the night of the full moon, which is like it was 2 days away from where they were, or something, like maybe a day away or something. And they go in their wetsuits, which is Rohan's back in his wetsuit from earlier. Chef Tonio has one where his name is emblazoned on it with the TT. It's green and red, and he also is just wearing his hat the whole time still. It's so incredible.
Good. It is amazing.
It is very bright out there for nighttime, but like you have to in order to make it visible for people to see on a television show, of course. Mm-hmm. So they're out there, they're just chilling, and then they spot a bunch of them floating by, and they're like, "Holy crap, look at them!" And Rohan picks one up. He's like, "This is heavy, huh?" And he's like, goes back to yell at Tony, like, "Hey, we should start catching them, putting them in the basket." And then he looks, he doesn't hear anything. He's like, "Hey, did you hear me?" And he looks back and no one's back there. And he's like, and he just like panics and starts trying to find him. And he finds him face down in the water. And there's an abalone latched to his face. And he's trying to pull it off and yank it off. He's like, "Oh, I gotta get off there or he's gonna suffocate. What is happening?" And then he falls back into the water. And then here comes more abalone just sucking onto him, onto Rohan.
And the water becomes very deep.
Water becomes very deep all of a sudden. He eventually is able to get back to the surface and then get some air, but then he's like, "Oh, I'm in a graveyard. I found the spot where all these poachers and people who had gone missing had ended up, because there's a bunch of skeletons here." And it's just like, oh, this wasn't necessarily a legend about these abalones. It was a trap to lure people here and kill them because these are. I think they talk about how like the abalone were like offerings to gods before, so like if you're poaching them, that's a huge sin against these gods. So if people are doing that, they're gonna get sucked into this place and then they're just gonna die. Because I think the whole thing is like this little spot here doesn't show up at all unless it's like this specific day. So like if you get caught here, you're gone forever, essentially, type deal. So Rohan gets trapped there, then he gets sunk down again. He's like, "Uh-oh, this is bad. What am I gonna do? What's happening?" And then it cuts back, and Rohan and Kyoka are back at the restaurant, and they're eating some octopus. And then we learned about how Rohan was sinking and found an octopus near him and used Heaven's Door on the octopus and was like, and used the ink from the octopus to write in the octopus and basically be like, "Attack the abalone for me," because they are the natural predator of abalones. And the octopus was like, "Hell yeah, I'm in. Let's go."
Nom 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 nom. They're all There's a bumness about like, "Oh man, I really wanted to eat the abalone," but they're like, "The octopus has the healing ability too." A little bit.
Yeah, they're like,
it's because it ate so many of them.
Chef Tony was like, "It's real weird that this octopus also has the ability that this abalone were supposed to have. It's real strange." And Rohan's just like, yeah.
Maybe it's because it ate 100 of them.
Yes.
How about that?
And then they go out to the back patio and they have a little dessert that Hatsune made for them because she's all better now because, like you said, she had the octopus and everything, and that's that. She's all better now. This dessert is a snack that Tonio's mom made for him when he was a kid. And he's like, "This is the best dessert ever. I love it."
He was so happy about it.
And she had promised him one day she was going to make it for him. Now she's able to, and everyone gets to chill and have this nice dessert together, and they're all happy.
Yay!
And then Rohan and Kyoka go to leave. And
Mm-hmm.
Kyoka's like, I'm going to tell everyone about this restaurant, but maybe I shouldn't because I really like this restaurant and I would rather, monopolize it for me instead. Maybe, for this one shot, we should take a trip to Italy, and see a bunch of food and everything and all that. And then, like, she's having this whole conversation and Rohan just, like, stops and looks at, like, these rocks. And he's like, shut up. Go, leave now. Go. And she's like, what are you talking about? What's going on over there? He's like, it's the Mutsukabe tree frogs mating. I gotta sketch this. If you come over here, you'll interrupt them and they will leave. And she's like, but I want to see. He's like, no, go, get out of here. And then she just leaves. He's like, well, I didn't want to see it anyways. And that's how this episode ends.
Mm-hmm.
It was real fun.
It was a lot of fun. The wetsuit will never not be funny though.
Yes.
The chef hat.
God, running out there with the chef hat was a very good goof.
It's so funny.
Really enjoyed that. And then there's also the episode 9.5, which was kind of like a little tiny episode that they did as well, which is basically set during the time when Rohan and Antonio are out poaching. And Kyoka and Hatsune are back at the restaurant. They're just having some tea and chit-chatting. And a lot of it is Hatsune being like, I'm going to make this the most heavy conversation you've ever had in your life.
Yep.
Do you remember when you were born? I remember the smell of raspberries when I was born. I met Tonio and he fixed my allergies by making lasagna for me. It was great and it reminded me of my mom. It was really good. Now I don't have allergies anymore, so it's cool. Kyoka's like,
That'd be nice.
Kyoka's like, you want me to make you food? And they're like, nah, we can't snack at night. That's bad for beauty. Womp, womp, womp.
Womp womp womp.
By the way, Hatsune's like, my grandma was dying, and I was like, where do you go when you die? Are you gonna become a star? And she's like, well, some become stars, some become butterflies, and some can become raspberries. But they're always watching over you. And she's like, I don't fear death. I'll be okay. I don't have regrets. And Kyoka's like, hey, by the way, I haven't had a lot of meals lately, and Tonio's cooking was really great. I really enjoyed it. I think living life to the fullest means enjoying food. That's great. That's love. Hatsune gets hungry. They're like, oh, man, I can't wait for breakfast. Because they're like, oh, we're going to have brioche and biscuits and cafe au lait and everything. And then, like, right as the episode ends, there's like, you smell that? It smells like wild strawberries. And I was like, what do you mean? That doesn't smell like anything. What?
Yeah.
What are you talking about?
I don't know what that smells like.
But they just, they have a little chuckle, sip their teas, and just, enjoying the nice night and everything. There's not a whole lot here. It's just kind of just, a little bit of a bonus, and it makes sense probably why they cut it out of, like, the main episode, and why this is more of a bonus. But it's still fun because you get to see these gals just have a little chit chat, even if it was a very heavy conversation.
It's a very heavy conversation. There's like a disconnect there of like, I want to make food. I'm hungry, and like, have you ever thought about death? It's like, oh my God. Oh, do you want to drink some tea?
Well, talking about death.
I will say there's one thing that I miss that we didn't get this episode that I'm sad about.
What's that?
We didn't end it with the stretches.
Oh, yeah, I guess that's true. We didn't.
The finger stretches.
He was too busy drawing some frogs doing the do.
Doing the do.
Yeah. That's more important.
I always like when he does the stretches.
I mean, I guess we never went to his house, so that's why.
No, we didn't go to his house.
It's also a bit of a surprise.
Yeah.
Well,
it was fun though. This was a lot of fun.
Yes, 100%. Very good episode. But would you like to listen to some manga differences and also some trivia from this episode?
I would love to.
Hatsune Morishima is the renamed version of the original character, Virginia. Virginia.
Oh, okay, that's an interesting name.
And also in this, she is Tonio's fiance rather than In the original, she's just the lover.
Ooh.
And here's some trivia real quick.
Okay.
There was a reference to Nobara Kugisaki from Jujutsu Kaisen in the book of the older poacher that Rohan uses Heaven's Door on. The text is cut off in some places due to Rohan's hand covering it, but it basically says this. Pet names are complicated. Why is a 2-year-old something named Nobara? It's a bit unusual, but I believe it's a girl's name from Jujutsu whatever. Seems like the Nobara girl from that something Kaisen has a boyish personality and defeats villains with 5-inch nails. I asked my wife why, and I was very surprised. So, Rohan learning about Fortnite Jujutsu Kaisen.
Oh my god.
And also, during the poaching scene, the singer Ryoko Aoki chants the no play Akogi in the Expedient Means chapter of the Lotus Sutra. The play is about the suffering of a fisherman named Akogi who defies a fishing ban in a sacred area reserved for the Ise Grand Shrine and poaches there before subsequently drowning. A monk is told the story by an old fisherman who is revealed to be Akoge's spirit. The monk then performs a memorial ceremony to console Akoge's spirit. Like Akoge, Tonio sees an old fisherman who tells him about the legend of the Hyogara Black Abalones. There we go. Since it wasn't clear which part of the Lotus Sutra the monk chanted in the play, the staff of the episode sought opinions from experts. In the end, since Rohan is saved, they used the Lotus Sutra with the intention of symbolizing his salvation.
Oh, that's actually really interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, that was a very distinct, like, vocal that was going on there.
Yeah.
So that's cool that it had so much meaning.
Yeah, 100%. And then would you like to hear the cast commentary for this season?
Would love to hear it.
We only have one, which is from Issei Takahashi, who plays Rohan, of course. He says, "This is my 5th year participating in the Rohan Kishibe series, but since talk of a sequel would naturally come up during production, I don't quite remember when exactly the sequel was officially greenlit. However, from the start, it seemed like the whole team had the desire to thoroughly explore Rohan's world to the point where we were satisfied with it. We didn't want to leave this project half-baked since we were already on board this ship. This wasn't about external expectations, but rather about reaching a point where we would be satisfied ourselves. That's how passionate our team was about this work. The fact that we were able to manifest these invisible things like our feelings and passions into a viable form or visible form may seem ordinary, but it feels like a representation of how the invisible things can be most important. By continuing the series and depicting Rohan's underlying spirit and his backstory shown in the Louvre, I think we were able to imbue a sense of his convincing presence into each work, as if the invisible but crucial essence of who Rohan is could be felt within them. We call it a manifestation of spiritual power a stand, although all of you stand users who could sense invisible things might have already seen this coming. The Louvre's TV debut is happening, which I guess is about that. I'm looking forward to it, thus I'll be poaching."
Thus I'll be poaching.
But yeah, that's.
I really hope that there's more of this.
Yeah, 100%. I think there's still more stuff that they can pull from the Rohan manga and the novelizations they've done. So there's still more stuff they can do, and maybe also just pull stuff from Diamonds Unbreakable, which they've already done
Diamonds Unbreakable
twice now. So
right,
might as well do that at some point.
Why not?
But yeah, hopefully we get to.
I'm still surprised they let him get his hair wet.
Yeah, you were like, oh, he's not gonna get his hair wet and everything because he's gonna, that hair is done up really well. You can't mess up that hair. But then he's just like, bloop, splash,
Bump.
splash.
Like, oh well, I guess he can get that hair wet.
Yeah.
That's so good.
This series continues to be great. I hope we get to come around next year and we get to learn about they're making more of this and we get to have fun with it and enjoy more episodes of this here series because it is just a grand old time. Very enjoyable. But yeah, that's going to do it for us this week. So if you'd like more from us, head on over to seasonalanicheckup.com or sac.cool where you can find past episodes of this podcast and other podcasts like Jared Now Watch. You can also find columns and reviews on the site as well. If you'd like more from Ann Ladium, go to annladium.com. She's got columns and reviews. You can follow us on Twitter and TikTok at Anime Checkup. You can follow us on Blue Sky, seasonalanicheckup.com. I forgot where I was. You can buy our books, One Shiny Moment, a critical analysis of Love, Life, Sunshine, Hot Doves, and Pac-Man on Amazon.com. And support us on Patreon, patreon.com/SACOVA. Buy us a slice of pizza, get access to unedited versions of the podcast early. Our monthly exclusive podcast, which we got to do at some point here soon. And a whole bunch of other bonus stuff as well. Next week, Al, it's time to say goodbye.
It is time to say goodbye.
The time has come and gone. Time is up. Our 3 to 4 month experiment is concluded. It is time finally to talk about Love Live School Idol Festival 2 in full.
It is.
So join us next week as we dive into that mess.
That hot mess.